Gentlemen, this oversight hearing on the Department of Corrections on Tuesday, June 2nd, 2015 at 5 p.m. is hereby convened by the Committee on the Guam U.S. Military Relocation, Public Safety, and Judiciary. Just for the information of the public notices were disseminated on the 26th of May to the media, to the stakeholders, and then also subsequently was disseminated on the 29th of May in regards to ensuring that the public has access and information to this particular oversight hearing. This also, the committee has convened this oversight hearing with two primary purposes. One is to ensure that the public has information and is provided information in regards to the activities taking place at DOC following the escape of a particular detainee, and then also at the request of Senator McCready to my immediate left. Subsequent to that event, several things have transpired, and I will allow the Department of Corrections to provide information with regards to that. The agenda for this evening would be Department of Corrections discussion on the information on the internal investigation regarding the escaped detainee on Tuesday, the 19th of May, 2015. Information on the condition of Post 18, a section within the DOC facility where escaped detainee was housed, and efforts to correct inefficiencies within DOC's personnel, rules and regulations, and facilities. And then also an issue that has been a concern of the community is we're going to request a status summary on the Department of Corrections' settlement agreement with regards to the health working group, the medical review panel, as well as the facilities working group electronic locking system. So if I can invite the Director of Department of Corrections and Mr. Director, Mr. San Agustin, if there's anyone else that you would like to invite to provide discussions or statements as we review the items on the agenda, then you're more than welcome to invite them to the table. Before I proceed, I'd like to recognize my colleagues and thank the senators to my immediate left, Senator Brian McCready and Senator Tony Etta. Thank you very much, senators, for joining us. To my immediate right is Vice Chair of the committee, Senator Tom Etta. Thank you, Senator, and Vice Speaker Cruz, who has also joined us this evening. Mr. San Agustin, I believe you have an understanding as to the rationale behind this particular oversight hearing, and we would like to, like I shared with you, get some information with regards to activities that have transpired that would reassure the community that under your direction and your leadership that you, as well as the Department of Corrections personnel, can reassure the community that the incident that occurred on the 19th of May has been addressed and is hopefully will not reoccur. So, Mr. San Agustin, if you can just identify yourself for the record and please provide any general comments you would like.
Mr. Chair, good evening, or good afternoon, good evening. Mr. Vice Speaker, Senators, good evening. If I may, Mr. Chair, I would like to have my deputy up here with me this afternoon as well.
By all means, Mr. San Agustin, and if there's anyone else that you would like to invite up to the table to provide feedback or be part of the conversation, then you're more than welcome to bring them up. You
okay, we'll do. If it comes to that point, I may request to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you want to proceed with your comments?
Yes, sir, I would like to proceed. Salute as an offer day, Senator Aguon and members of the Committee on Guam U.S. Relocation, Public Safety and Judiciary. I am Jose San Agustin, Director of the Department of Correction. First and foremost, I would like to thank you all for this opportunity to appear before you today to address the issues that are currently affecting our facility. DOC is making great efforts in being as physically responsible as we can without jeopardizing safety and security. We make all efforts to minimize our overtime, even though dire times such as loss of manpower due to resignations, retirements, and termination. We always work to stay within our budget as we understand the scarcity of funds needed not just by this department, but by our brothers and sisters of law enforcement. Everyone is equally as important, and we all need to work together in the protection of this community. We continue to seek ways to maximize our efforts in safety and security with the manpower that we have. Albeit not an ideal level, our manpower is adequate to meet our obligations for safety and security. In my tenure as the director of this agency, I have engaged in many challenges that have resulted in a loss of manpower due in part of holding my people, employees, accountable for their actions. My deputy and I stand firm in assuring that this effort continues as we hold our staff to a higher standards. My team and I are here willing and able to answer any and all questions you have that will not pose a risk to the ongoing investigation at the Department of Corrections, and we are committed to working with the legislature to achieve our goals of the community safety. At this time, unless my deputy has other things she might want to share, we are available for any and all questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Director. Mr. Director, I appreciate your opening comments, but again, it comes back to what has the department implemented or effectuated to be able to assure the community that this same incident that had occurred on the 19th, and without going into specifics, what has the department done to show the community that this incident will not occur to the greatest extent possible?
Well, as we speak, Senator, as you know, that the internal investigation is ongoing. What we got so far was we actually placed 9 officers on administrative leave because of that investigation. There are additional officers, supervisor level, that also have been informed that they are part of this internal investigation. The purpose of the internal investigation is, again, to identify areas of problem that caused the individual to escape on the day in question and the individual that's in question. I could say that at this point I cannot speak with regards to human error. I will say that there's policies and laws in place, and those policies and laws in place are efficient. But I will say that from what I seek and what I see here is that individuals did not perform their duties like they should. The reason that the investigation moves forward is that those that were responsible for the escape would be held accountable. As you all know, that I've been with this agency for a little bit over 4 years. My job is just to ensure that these people perform their job, they do their jobs, and if not, then I will take stringent action in ensuring that those that do not do and perform their job do it like they should, or we remove those individuals who's hampering the daily operation and who's endangering the safety and security of our citizens. There are training that are taking place that was being provided by your warden since the incident. Training that is, again, back to the basics, informing these individuals of the basic accountability of personnel, how to execute those, how to conduct those, and it's kind of a more so a refresher training. Again, I would like to not elaborate much to where we at with regards to the investigation, but I am here to let you all know that there are people, officers, that will be held accountable for the escape. Briefly, again, what I see here is human error, disregard to policy. Policy was not complied with, and so I just ask that we respect the investigation as it moves forward. I will assure you that once I'm able to gather sufficient information within the time frame allotted, that I will take immediate adverse action to those individuals responsible for neglecting their duties. And I will also assure you that when enough information is provided for me to do so, that we will have a press conference to invite all the media so that we can go out and actually inform the public of our findings and what we intend to do to continue to improve our daily operation.
Mr. San Agustin, you've provided the committee and also the members here have been provided a copy of the estimated increase in overtime as a result of the 9 individuals being placed on admin leave. Now, the issue at hand, as I look at it, from my perspective, is you have 9 corrections officers that are no longer providing direct services at the Department of Corrections. In conjunction with the overtime, because it also comes to a point where you don't want to have your manpower working excessive hours without affecting their ability to be able to adequately respond on the spur of the moment. So has there been any effort to reach out through either the governor's office or to any sister government of Guam agencies to request some additional reinforcements, at least for the interim? Or do you feel that your actions thus far is sufficient to assure the public that the inmates as well as the detainees will remain confined as required by law?
I'll be gladly respond to that. The 9 officers that were placed on administrative leave are back on duty as of today, 09. They are not placed in the same housing unit. In saying that, we ensure that the individuals that are assigned above them are to actually ensure that their supervision are kept on these individuals at all times so that they do not hamper any additional problems that may arise in the agency. In saying that, again, the investigation will continue to move forward. Even though these individuals are placed back in the facility, we have enough reason to believe that we have enough information from these individuals to safely be able to place them back on duty, and that the investigation continue to move forward from there.
Okay, so you have brought back the 9 individuals that were placed on admin leave. So you're back to your manpower strength prior to the incident.
That is correct.
In conjunction with that, you have instituted ongoing training with regards to the policy, because one of your statements was that the policies and the laws are efficient.
That's correct.
Now, based on that, this training, which you refer to as refresher training,
Yes.
how often are your corrections officers, or how often do they undergo training which is necessary to ensure that they're always alert and ready to respond should an incident occur?
And that's a good question. You know, daily, whenever there's a shift change, the commander and sometimes the warden is there to remind these people of their duties and responsibility. Again, a lot of the briefing that comes about, again, is what's happening in each housing unit and informing those individuals that's going to be assigned in that respective housing unit what it is they need to be aware of. Many of the training that is conducted or gone over to the briefing are repetitive. It's staying awake, ensuring accountability, ensuring that you identify potential folks that are going to suicide themselves, medical problems, head counts. You do the perimeter check. You do the ensuring that all the gates are locked, all that stuff. So these training happen just about every day during briefings. They're briefed on what to expect and what's expected of them and how they should conduct and execute themselves. But to answer your question, we go further. We've also providing them additional training with respect from the marshals and GPD to enhance their skills and ability to better themselves in an event that a breakout does take place. Again, we have these people that we have a good working relationship with, where they understand that we have this number of folks that are trained in that facility to engage in this kind of issues. And when GPD does engage in the marshals, they have a good idea and understanding of who had received those training and what type of training have they received. Therefore, they know how to engage. But to answer your question, we would like to do more of that.
So let me ask you, how many individuals are assigned to a post on any given shift?
That's a good question. On any given shift, it's normally minimum of two to three.
Minimum of 2 to 3.
2 to 3, that's correct.
And thus far, the information that was made available publicly, and I want to thank our media partners for ensuring that the information not only from your press releases but also from other official documents are appropriately provided to the community. So on any given shift, there are 2 individuals assigned to a post. Now, there was a lapse of 2 days with regards to this recent incident before it was discovered that the detainee was missing. Now, that understanding that there's ongoing investigation, and we certainly don't want to infringe on that. But I think that if there's one message here, is that for 2 days to lapse with different shifts of personnel, you're possibly looking at 4 separate shifts, because you have, even if you go on a 12-hour shift, you have 4 different individuals posted on 2 different shifts. So that being the case, there were 4 different shifts in which an individual was not discovered. How are you addressing this to ensure that accountability is taken? And I was speaking to, and I'll just share this perspective, I was speaking to a member in the community, and just understanding that every single individual there should be given an opportunity for a meal. That would be one time frame.
That's correct.
When in fact accountability can be taken. So if you're talking about a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, there are 3 time frames where in fact accountability can be taken of every single inmate and every single detainee that is assigned in that particular post. So it comes back again to the training and ensuring that you empower. It really comes back to making sure that your personnel are empowered and given adequate time to carry out their responsibilities and sufficient training so that they can continue to remain alert. And it goes back again. You refer to it as human error, but human error on 4 separate occasions, 4 different shifts, I think is something that really requires extensive additional training. And you and I were involved in a different environment where in fact that was provided, and it was always a prerequisite. In light of your personnel, my concern is threefold. One is the assurance to the community that in fact the responsibility of the Department of Corrections is being sufficiently addressed in terms of keeping the inmates and the detainees confined. That's the first foremost response or aspect that I consider. The second aspect is ensuring that your men and your women, corrections officers, and all of your additional civilian personnel are provided with the training and the tools and equipment necessary to carry out their responsibility. And obviously there's a third factor, but I'll refrain from that because it comes back to the management, making sure that all the reports are provided and filed in a timely manner. But that being said, I'll go ahead and open the floor to a number of my colleagues to ask a question. And it comes back, again, Mr. San Agustin, in regards to what are you doing to assure the community? And you've shared with us, you've brought back the 9 individuals, you're providing additional training, and I certainly hope that it's additional extensive training, and if your men and women in uniform need additional resources, then we need to know. We're having this oversight to get an update, but we also are having this oversight so that if there's anything, any additional support that you need from this body, working with the front office, that we will work towards providing the resources that you need. So I will yield to Senator McCready, who had initially requested that an oversight hearing be held. Senator McCready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Director, Deputy Director, for attending today. I just want to touch on a few things here. And I want to congratulate you guys first off on the infirmary that I visited today. I know, this may sound like a piling on oversight hearing, and that's not my intention. But there are going to be some tough questions that need to be asked.
I'm sorry, let me intervene. I'm sorry, Senator McCready. If you think this is piling on, no, this is a line of question, and Mr. San Agustin and I know and understand where we're coming from. Our responsibility is to assure the community that every effort is being taken to ensure that these inmates and these detainees will remain confined as part of the mandate of Department of Corrections. The second aspect of this oversight hearing and the relationship that we have tried to facilitate is making sure that the men and women in uniform are provided not only with the skills, with the training, but also the tools and equipment necessary to carry out their responsibilities. Because how can we honestly sit here and then question you if we don't know what you need? And I just needed to clarify that because, Mr. San Agustin, this is our responsibility. I get questioned every now and then with regards to my decisions, my actions. Likewise, you are in a critical position that our community wants answers to. And yes, Senator McCready is absolutely right. You have been open to the public in providing press releases and having press conferences, and I certainly appreciate that. But I don't consider this piling on, rather just getting answers so that we can assure the community and we can assure our men and women in uniform that they will get the support that they will need to be able to carry out their responsibilities. So I certainly hope you understand that, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the questions that I might ask might seem like they're piling on. I only speak for myself, so yeah, it's just I'm talking about me piling on, and so I'm going to ask those tough questions. I just don't want it to seem like I'm the one piling on. I didn't mean that for the chairman or anyone in this committee. I'm just speaking for myself. I want to congratulate you guys and the Attorney General who's here today for spearheading the infirmary project. That I think when I went there today, and it was just I called it at I think 9 o'clock this morning because I wanted to make sure that after the meeting that we had last week with Dr. Wu, I wanted to, and the insight he gave us on the infirmary, I wanted to make sure that not all was lost in the hard work that the men and women at the Department of Corrections do every day, and not lost that the consent decree stipulation we're trying to get out of by September is moving forward in a positive progression. And so I congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
And I thank you guys and the Department of Corrections for working 7 days a week around the clock, Saturdays and Sundays, for all those men and women who did work. And when it comes to the oversights, and this is our third oversight as I've been a senator, 2 of these oversights were because of escapes. And that, as the chairman alluded to, is unacceptable, and they deserve answers by us and by the community. And so when I ask the questions, please don't take it personal, but I think that they need to be answered. And you had said that you've been fiscally responsible, and I do think that the administration is giving you guys all that you need. The legislature has given you guys all that you need. We've asked time and time again what you need. We've paid the overtime, we've paid the 40%, we've done everything that we could possibly do to give the authorizations of prior year obligations to you guys to make ends meet. And so what I'm concentrating on is the department doing the same thing. Kind of like when a parent struggles to pay for their kids' schooling and getting the resources to pay for their school. They want to make sure that their return is good grades. And is the Department of Corrections leadership giving the good grades or getting the good grades? And so I ask you, you say there's 9 officers that were put on admin leave and they are now back at work.
That's correct.
But the investigation is still ongoing.
That's correct.
So are you telling me that those 9 officers were not part of the escape? They had nothing to do with the escape?
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying that we are able to move forward with the investigation without having to continue to place these individuals on administrative leave. Again, when I say physically responsible, I'm one of those individuals who don't like to put people on administrative leave or away from the work environment, getting paid doing nothing. It is safe enough to say that the investigation can continue to move forward, including those 9 individuals that were placed back on duty. So that work will continue.
So by allowing the 9 individuals to come back to work because you don't feel that admin leave with pay is a right thing to do, you're either saying that you're taking a risk because of physical restraints that you don't want them at home getting paid and you're compromising safety, or you're either saying that
actually
someone other than the 9 officers could be responsible for the escape.
Oh, absolutely. There's more coming, Senator. There's more coming. But let me say this, that again, we have enough information to be able to place these people back on duty without continuing to pay them, staying at home doing nothing. What's very important to remember that when you place an individual on admin leave is to remove that individual from that facility, so that the individual doesn't poison or become a distractor or cause more problem for, say, until we do our initial assessment. Initial assessment has been done. We found out that it's sufficient enough to return him the 9 individual back on duty, so that's why I went ahead and made that decision. That decision, again, was something that I spoke with the deputy and also my internals to make sure that, hey, if we put them back, they will not hamper the daily operation. That's a decision that I think is right. It does not exclude them from the investigation that's ongoing.
Okay. So you earlier said that, and I'm gonna switch subjects here because I don't see how 9 officers come back to work while the investigation is still ongoing. I don't understand them being home getting paid, which is law, adverse action or admin leave or adverse, whatever it is, they get paid for it.
Sure.
I think when you make the decision to bring all 9 back, why would you put them on leave anyway? I mean, what were they on leave for? 5 days?
That's a good question. Yes, at least 5 days. And again, it's to remove them away from the facility so that we could do our preliminary findings. Preliminary findings has been done. It's sufficient for me to say I got enough information obtained from the initial finding. Again,
but you're not putting them back to the same job that they were doing prior to being put on leave.
So
you're not really comfortable with them being at the prison the way they left. So you put them on admin leave, but you bring them back to a different job because you're not comfortable with them being inside the prison. Correct?
They're back in the facility, Senator.
But they're not what they did before they left.
Yes, they're in a different housing unit.
Because why is that though? Because you do not. Are you not satisfied? Are you not confident that they can perform their jobs? Why would you not put them back to what they left at?
And that's a good question, and I could answer that quite easily. When you remove them from that housing unit and keep them away from that housing unit where they were initially at, remember that when they were there were the same prisoners that are there. So again, some of these prisoners will have information for us that they might want to share, that we want to make sure that these people are not placed in there to prevent them from providing us more information.
So you're not confident? You're not confident in their ability to carry out the duties of a Department of Corrections officer because they're not going back to what they were doing before they left?
Yes, they are.
If I sent a employee on admin leave and then brought that employee back to do something else, that means I'm not confident anymore in her or his ability to do the work that they did before they left.
They're doing this, Senator, they're doing the same thing, but not in the same housing unit.
Why?
Because we want to keep them away from the environment where they were initially were working at, and that's the housing. We want to keep them away from the housing unit that they were initially working at. We're assigning them to another housing unit where information or threats to any of those prisoners in there.
You're saying the prisoners are threatening the guards?
No, no, it's the opposite.
The guards are threatening the prisoners.
We'll go from there.
Senator, if I may, there's a procedure that we're following whenever there's an incident that occurs at the facility. So right now, the Internal Affairs Unit conducted a preliminary investigation, put the officers on admin leave, and then once the preliminary interviews were done with the officers, they were allowed to return to the facility to work, but they're not given the same responsibilities they were given before. We can't exactly elaborate on that because that's also something that's still being investigated. We switched them from housing units, from a different housing unit, so that scene can still be investigated by Internal Affairs to include the interviews of the inmates that may or may not have seen anything that went on the day that Mr. Alois allegedly escaped on the Saturday.
So basically, the part of the problem of the escape you could have let back into the prison. You're not sure? By bringing those 9 officers back?
I'm not sure of the question.
By bringing the 9 officers back,
sure.
Part of this problem with this last escape could be coming back into the facility. You're not saying that the 9 is not part of the problem, correct? You're not saying that?
The nine officers are somehow related to the escape. Yes.
And you're letting them back in?
We are letting them back into another facility, another housing unit.
So you're letting someone back in that you're not really satisfied of, didn't have anything to do with the escape. That's all. I just want to get yes or no. Yes or no. That's simple. I can move on to the next question.
I think that's incorrect. That's incorrect. They're back at work, but they're still under the internal affairs investigation. They're still under investigation.
But you let them back in. They're back at work.
Sure. Sure.
On November 15th, 2013, we had another oversight hearing. And that oversight hearing had to do with the now convicted murderer escaping from a transport vehicle. In that hearing, you said that the adverse action would be taken accordingly with the employees who let that happen, or who allowed that to happen, who was on shift when that happened. Correct?
That's correct.
Were any of them fired?
Can I clarify? Can I clarify if that particular case has anything to do with the case that we're
I'm trying to get
discussing
the
right now?
definition from you, Mr. Director, of what adverse action is. Because you sit here earlier and you say that those individuals responsible for this escape will be dealt with accordingly, and you will hand down severe adverse action. What is adverse action?
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, in adverse action, you could do
And did you fire anyone for the last escape?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. But appropriate actions were taken.
What is appropriate action?
And again, appropriate action, if you don't provide the officers the appropriate tools to do their job, you cannot punish them for not providing them all the tools they need. So in this case, again, briefly, if we only say you only got one handcuff to cuff the one individual, instead of cuffing them on the ankle, on the hips, and the wrist, then you do not want to unjustly fire an individual because you failed to provide them all the tools. So that's where you have to come into play as a management and say it's unfair to terminate this individual, whom there was an escape, but it's not fully their fault. Okay, so that's I based my decision on that they were not provided all the tools that they needed. And again, what we did was went ahead and implemented training for transport to let them know, listen, when you transport these individuals, this is a mobile prison. You're not just transporting them for sightseeing. You got to make sure that the restraints are placed on the ankle, restraints are placed on the waist, and also restraints are placed on
And
the...
so if they're not placed, as you're saying, we need to make sure, or the officers need to make sure that the restraints are placed.
That's
If
correct.
they're not placed, does that signify that the officer is not responsible for not placing, or are you saying that they didn't have the restraints available? Because what you're saying now is a lapse of judgment in the officer if they didn't provide restraints. So are you saying that the officer, because now what you're saying is essentially you should have fired them because they didn't put the restraints on? Or are you saying that you don't have restraints?
But again, I would want to not...
Do you have restraints?
Yes, we do.
And if you don't put the restraints on, whose fault is that?
Again, was proper training provided?
Is it the officer's fault?
At that time, were those restraints available? Did they have all the restraints to
Were
do
they
a
available?
full restraint?
Yes or no? Were they available?
Were they available?
Yes, the restraints.
Yes, they were available.
And they weren't put on.
But training wasn't provided.
Okay. I'll try and be quick, Mr. Chair. I know there's other questions. Your current staffing pattern is for the officers 6 days on, 1 day off? Is there any new policies that you put forward that has changed the hours of the department?
You're probably confusing staffing pattern from their duty days,
Pardon?
their duty assignments.
So it's 6
Their
days on, 1 day
shift.
off?
You're talking their shift, not staffing pattern.
Okay, so their shift is now 6 days on, 1 day off.
6 and 1, that's correct.
Is that normal?
Well, no, we're going to fix that. We switch back
We-
to 5 and 2.
With the return of the 9 officers that were on admin leave, the staff is now 5 and
5 and 2.
5 and 2.
Okay.
5 days on, 2 days off.
With the return.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay, and they were gone for 5 days.
5 days, that's correct.
Let me bring you back to, I got sidetracked. Let me bring you back to the adverse action. In this case, with this latest escape, what we've learned from the last escape that you just alluded to, that your officers were not trained to put on shackles and handcuffs, correct? Properly. That's what you just said, correct?
Sure.
Do you foresee, and I think you have, since you've been there for a little over 4 years,
That's correct.
you have either had officers retire, resign, or be fired under a cloud of investigation. I think it's about 18 officers, correct?
20,
20 officers.
that's correct.
So you have proven to clean house when you need to clean house, correct? You've let people go before. You fired people.
That's correct.
Thank you. Do you think that this lapse in judgment by the officers at Department of Corrections deserves that somebody will be reprimanded and lose their job?
I can't say that at this point. Investigation is not complete.
Okay. How many inmates do you have?
As of today, 777.
777.
That's correct. That's including detainees.
What state is the prison in right now? What
Pardon?
state? What type of state?
You want to give me your...
Overcrowding, because on November 15, 2013, I asked you if the prison was in a state of emergency. And you said, Senator, I will say this. If an additional 100 detainees came on board the Department of Corrections, then that's when I will honestly say, now we are in a state of emergency. I'm not asking you to call for one. I'm just saying what you read. I'm not calling for a state of emergency by any stretch of the imagination. I've called for 2, both times it hasn't happened. I'm just going on what you said, and I think that 100 detainees has reached its point. I'm not asking for you to call anything. I'm just saying this is what was said a year and a half ago, and we are at that point now.
The agency is operating efficiently. We're going to have problems, like any other agency. Knowing the type of clients we have at DOC, they're not in there because they want to be priests. They're not in there because they want to be teachers. They're criminals. So what needs to be considered is the type of clients we have. In saying that, no, we are not in any sort of state of emergency. I really feel we're way far away from there. And the reason for that, again, a lot of really what has to take place is just ensuring that the manpower is there, management is there, training is there. And again, as you toured the facility a couple of months ago with several senators, the reason for that tour that I invited the senators was to help me look at the facility and see for yourself, first sight, that the facility is in fact overcrowded. No one during that tour said, yeah, it's overcrowded.
Mm-hmm.
The response I got is, where's the electronic locking and the cameras? And we're working on that. The electronic locking is moving forward. We will work on getting cameras, but the thing here is the violation is the overcrowding, and that's where I need the help the most.
I know you guys are on track with the lock-in mechanisms and the infirmary. I know that you said the RFP is going out Friday. I have no questions with the Attorney General's lead and the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor. We will get this done. That is not my concern here today. My concern is what we're going to do moving forward, and how we can never again have an escape. I mean, just one's too many. We had 2 in the last year and a half. one last question. How important is it to you, Mr. Director? And I just want to make this very clear. I've been a supporter of yours for the last 3 years, since I became a senator. I've had numerous meetings with you. I've tried to help uncover all of these Department of Corrections issues so that you guys at the Department of Corrections, your employees, could have a safer working environment and a more effective and efficient working environment. I have never, ever called for your resignation, never asked for it, even though when times were tough, I stood by you. I asked you the tough questions, but they're the questions that need to be asked. So I have one last question. How important, can you tell me when you found out that this individual escaped?
On the 19th of May,
Which was what day?
On or about 1400, 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock
2
on
p.m.
Monday.
And that was on a Tuesday.
That was on a Tuesday.
Tuesday. That's correct.
How important was it to you? And by the way, I appreciate your service to our country, and I thank you for that, because I know they nickname you Master Guns, and I have the utmost confidence in your leadership and what you want to do with this island. I know you want to protect it. But how important was it for you when the leadership of your department needed you? How important was it for you to be there when you found out that that person was missing and possibly missing for 3 days? And how important was it for you to lead your troops to make sure that you caught him?
Well, first of all, it was very embarrassing, to know that if it was true that Mr. Alois did in fact leave on the 16th of May, and it's just now 4 days later that we're finding out, or I'm finding out, it's very concerning, very concerning. And so when we talk about leadership, Senator, if you're alluding whether I'm doing enough,
I'm not asking you what you're doing enough.
Whether do I care about my job
Yes.
and what I do?
Yes, I know you do.
I will tell you this. People need to be very careful, because my style would be bring my pillow and sleep in the center of that area to make sure that this community is safe.
And I understand that, sir.
I don't intend to go anywhere, just to let you all know. I'm going to dig deeper into this, because all the reason the problem continues to exist. And we know that it continues to exist, and it's unacceptable for my style. In saying that, I need to be able to empower people below me. I need to be able to make sure I trust them and ensure that they could do the job without violating policy. But I'm hoping that you're not trying to take me into a direction that I'm going to give up where I'm at, because it ain't going to happen. There's only 3 ways of doing this: governor, lieutenant governor, and the people. And I know for a fact that I don't intend to give in because of challenges that they continue to pose on me at DOC.
Meaning, when you say give in, I'm not following you.
I don't give up.
Okay.
I'm here to stay. And senators, I hope you all love me, because I'm here to stay. I don't plan to go nowhere. Sure.
That's my question.
Thank you very much, Senator McCready. Before I yield to Senator Tom Ada, I'd like to just ask you a quick question. Because you're dealing with personnel issues, have you sought the assistance of the Attorney General's office and sought some legal guidance all along this path the last couple weeks?
With regards
And
to-
I only bring that up not with regards to operations, but with regards to dealing with personnel issues. Because eventually, if push comes to shove, some of your decisions could ultimately be legally challenged. And if that happens, obviously it's always good to have the assistance and the support of the Attorney General's office or a legal counsel, so that that individual can guide you legally along the entire process. So I'm getting the impression that the answer is no at this point in time.
Based on the investigation, Senator, for the escape, if that's what we're talking about at this point,
Yes.
should there arise a time where adverse action is going to be filed against any of the 9 or any other staff members at the Department of Corrections, we will follow the letter of the law. And we will follow the procedures and the policies instituted also by the Civil Service Commission and do what we need to do.
And the reason why I also bring this up is because obviously 9 individuals, whether we want to face it or not, 9 individuals, their career has already been tainted and put into question by virtue of them being placed on admin leave. If your investigation should result in that individual having absolutely nothing, no impact in regards to the escape of this detainee, that individual could legally, in my opinion, pursue a legal challenge against the department, only because of that taint. And that's why I would recommend that the department, anytime that you're dealing with personnel issues, lean forward and ask the Attorney General, General Barrett Anderson, for at least additional support and guidance along the way. Because when you're dealing with people's lives, it's really very serious. And this escape is extremely serious. But in the same token, like I shared with you, if any of those 9 individuals were found to have had zero contact or impact on the escape of that individual, you know, something could lead to a legal challenge. And that's where you would always want an attorney to advise you accordingly, so that in fact, when that decision is made, that you feel comfortable, that you have someone legally advising you along the way. So I just will leave with that. Senator Talmata?
Thank you very much. Mr. San Agustin, first of all, I want to kind of express my, I guess you could say, disappointment that first statement made was, you know, an internal investigation is ongoing, and so we can't really answer too much. And it's been 17 days since the incident, yet the answer to a very simple question, such as what is being done to make sure that you know, accountability is taken daily, you know, that couldn't be answered. I mean, I don't know how many opportunities during the day there are to be able to take a head count. And so, you know, that question I thought wasn't satisfactorily answered. I mean, is it now being taken 6 times a day, one at breakfast, one at lunch, one at dinner?
I could answer that, and I'm sorry to cut you off. But
No, you didn't.
by
Please
policy,
answer.
sure, it's every hour in the daytime.
Okay.
You know, 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening.
Okay.
And then after that, it's every 30 minutes
Okay.
in the evening.
But then, as I understand it, and again, you know, as reported by the media, I guess the individual in question had arranged his bed so that it made it seem like he was in bed. And so, for I guess the next 3 days, or at least what was reported, was that looked in and said, oh, the guy's there. I mean, so has anything changed to the extent that unless you see the white of his eyes, he is not accounted for?
Yes, and well, I'll let the deputy answer that, but
Okay.
yes.
Yes, sir. What we've done is we've instilled new checks and balances for the different head count and the insurance that the population is still confined to the department. Now, instead of simply counting bodies wherever you see them, there has to be, we call it, you know, clipboard to body. So you're going to look at a name. It's essentially going to be roll call, rather than just counting off how many people are in any given cell or housing unit. You're going to call off from the name to the person and then move on from there, so that the count could be more accurate.
Yeah. And of course, I guess that's feasible during the daytime when they're walking around and there's not sleeping. But as I understand it, again, from the media reports, the escape, I guess, took place at around 2, 3 in the morning. So I'm sure you're not going to be waking up the individuals, you know, every hour. So I mean, so how's that being rectified so that, again, you know, you don't have this individual who creatively puts something together to make it look like he's in there?
And it's a valid point, Senator. Again, it's always been the policy that a physical head count, that means every 30 minutes in the evening when the person is asleep, that the individual officers go in there and ensure it's a live body. It's very shameful that it takes something like this for us to say what happened. You know, you place a dummy there and they were counting a dummy. But in addition to that, reinforcement is also placed at the commanders during certain hours in the evening will be part of those head counts. And they, in addition, with the officers.
Okay. Now, I just have two more questions.
Yes,
One
sir.
was you responded that with the, I guess, with the November escape, that no adverse actions were taken. And if I understood you correctly, it was because the individual didn't have, the officers did not have the equipment necessary to properly restrain the individual, did not have the appropriate training, and therefore it really wasn't, I kind of was hearing, it really wasn't their fault. And so therefore no adverse action was taken. And fine, that's your call. But are you seeing that with the investigations that you've done so far that looks like we're trending that way too, that the officers that were on those shifts really could not be held responsible?
No, they have to be held responsible, Senator, and I apologize if I mislead you on the November issue. But yes, adverse action was taken. Those two individuals were placed on 30 days suspension.
Okay.
Adverse action was taken.
Okay.
Apologize.
Okay, fine. And finally, given the fact that it's been already 17 days since the incident, and I'm sure because of the fact that, you know, a number of days had elapsed before the discovery was made that the individual had escaped, I would have expected that you would go down there and turn beds upside down and whatnot to get answers to how did this ever happen.
But then if I did that, then it'll ruin the investigation. I would love to do that. That's a style where I come from, but in the government of Guam, you don't do that, Senator.
Okay.
You have to let the investigation
Now let me
do its
rephrase
own
my
thing.
question
Yes,
then.
sir.
It's been about 17 days, I presume, since you've started your investigation, and up to today, we're still conducting this internal investigation. So how much longer do you think it will take, that this investigation will take before you come to some kind of conclusions so that we go on to the next step and we say, okay, these guys have to go, these are the policy changes we need to make, and let's move on?
Yeah. Well, you know, I know we owe answers to the public. They deserve the answer. But let's not rush into this because no one's going to benefit. Let's make sure we do it right so that those that are responsible, including myself, are held accountable. Let's not rush it. We have a timeline of 60 days to work with, but we are diligently expediting it. But I just ask, let's not rush because ain't nobody going to benefit on this.
No.
You
And
know,
I agree with you,
Yes, sir.
we should not rush, but then is that your timeline that you're looking at, that in 60 days you will wrap this investigation up?
I will probably forget, probably less than that, sir. But
Okay.
let's not rush it. Let's make sure we do it right. That's why I asked.
No, I agree with you fully. I just want to know, when can we come in here and not, you know, I don't want to use the word hide behind the cover of an internal investigation is ongoing, but that, I mean, I think you've answered my question. 60 days, and we're not going to be able to say, to deflect questions because an internal investigation is ongoing.
And you will never see me hide.
Okay.
Sure.
Senator, I can assure you that although we have the 60 days to complete the internal affairs investigation, that the internal affairs unit has been working around the clock and quite diligently to get the answers that we need. And much like the chairman said, there are people's lives and reputation, you know, at stake as well. We don't want to rush into anything and quickly move into some type of adverse action that may not be warranted. So there's the initial investigation, the preliminary investigation that occurred with the inmate, then the officers that would have direct contact with the inmate, and then we're now moving towards anyone else that may have known of this situation and didn't report it in a timely fashion, thereby their dereliction of duties. And that's what we're looking at this time. But we anticipate being done way before the 60 days.
Thank you very much, Senator. Vice Speaker Cruz?
Thank you very much. I'm a little concerned. The chairman asked, I thought, a very good question, whether or not either one of you had taken or availed yourself of legal counsel from the Attorney General's office or from the Governor's office. And I don't think I got an answer whether or not it was yes or no. Have you or have you not availed yourself of any legal counsel since this incident?
At this, Senator, Vice Speaker, at this point, we haven't. It's kind of an early stage in the investigation, but I really think that if we feel that we're stuck and we need to seek for legal counsel, we will do so. But again, a lot of it is somewhat just very preliminary. Might there be a criminal investigation thereafter? It's possible. Please keep in mind that even though this is unique and it's an escape, this is no different from any other internal investigation that we've done before. So in saying that, again, we will not say, well, we're not going to take that advice. If you all feel that we should, the Attorney General is here. I'm being represented by Kathleen Focus and the AG, of course, and Monty May. We'll take that advice.
I understand that the three of them are assisting you in dealing with the federal court order. My question, and the question that I thought the chairman was asking, was, have you sought their legal counsel on how to deal with this issue, not the district court, but with this issue?
So the answer,
because you've obviously already taken administrative action on 9 individuals. You put them on administrative leave, and now you brought them back on. Have you asked the Attorney General or any legal counsel what the legal effect of that is, of your backpedaling, as it would seem, on deciding to bring them back on rather than continue to keep them off?
we have not. I have not. And I don't think it's backpedaling.
Okay, well,
I don't think it is.
all right, because I chaired the last oversight, okay, and as Senator Abbott put it, at that time we were told you couldn't answer questions because there was an ongoing investigation, and maybe it was derelict on my part to not have a follow-up after that when you finally dealt with it, if you dealt with it. But I'm a little concerned now that you're saying that besides a 30-day suspension, that the department is claiming, or at least saying, it wasn't the officer's fault that they weren't provided with enough cuffs, either for the waist or for the ankles or for the hands. But if memory serves me correctly, and I know that some people may say getting senile, and I may not remember, but if memory serves me right, the prisoner at that time had cuffs on, but the story was that he had met with his attorney a few days before that, and that he managed to take a huge staple off the legal documents and use the staple to pick the lock. So he had a lock. He was cuffed. At least that was my memory. Am I wrong?
That is correct, but he wasn't cuffed properly for the purpose of transport. If he was cuffed with the wrist, the waist, and the anklet, he could do whatever he wants to do to take the one off the wrist, but it'd be difficult to try to get the rest out from the waist. Again, there were 3 pieces that should have been engaged with regards to the proper cuffing when transporting. And that's why I say 30 days is sufficient, because we did not provide the proper training and tools for the transport officers initially when they were transporting this individual that was extremely...
and after that escape, what SOPs, what equipment have you provided the officers to make sure that that didn't happen again?
And good question. We immediately went ahead and did training into the weekend of proper cuffing when transporting prisoners. What's been implemented is again the wrist, the waist, and the anklet. Wrist, waist, and anklet. And then again, the proper way of cuffing the individuals, especially those that are very dangerous. So again, I can assure you all that at that time where he was being transported, he was cuffed, but just cuffed right here, not the waist and not the anklet.
After
So those
that,
are the
after
additional-
that escape, did we write new SOPs or new general orders on how to be able to do certain things?
We implemented the training. Part of that would be implemented into the 9419, which is being revised. That has been revised and now is being reviewed in its entirety. But those are all part of the implementation.
That, if my math is correct, was 18 months ago. Do you have copies of those revised 1914, or whatever that number is, that you can provide the chairman so that we can review it?
Probably a draft copy.
So in 18 months, it's not been adopted?
It's being yes, sir. It's being revised. The thing again is, until it's adopted, the existing 9419 is still valid. But it's
And what is the existing 9419 as it relates to transporting?
all the proper procedures and all the that pertains to the operation of DOC. Oh, it's all covered.
Can you provide that to the chairman so that I can review it?
Sure.
And also whatever the revisions are that you're planning on for that, and an explanation of why it's been 18 months and it's still not been adopted?
Sure.
Okay. If memory serves me right, with that escape 18 months ago, there was also an issue about I forget how they call it, a trailer car or a follow-up car. Was that
Yes,
chase vehicle?
That's correct. That's been implemented. Yes, sir.
And if I were to sit outside on Route 4 and my road, and in the afternoon when they're starting to transport down, would there be a chase vehicle with every transport
Not
going
every
down?
transport, only if the passengers or clients in there are deemed to be an escape risk.
And what would be the criteria for an escape risk?
Those that are known to be high-profile escapees.
And Mr. Alowis, would he have been considered a high profile?
Because of what happened, yes, sir.
No, but before the escape,
No, not before.
as an alleged rapist, he's not considered a high risk? Isn't that, if memory serves me right, aren't the allegations against him a rape? Major criminal sexual conduct.
Yes, that makes him a high risk, sure.
And was there any special kind of attention paid to making sure that he was being watched while he was at DOC? Admittedly, he's only 5'3", but he's still, both he and Garrido were both stature-wise little guys. But they're more dangerous. And was there any procedure implemented to watch him, or was he just in the general population awaiting his trial? You don't separate the rapist from the rest of them and have them held in a completely different facility than you would your burglars or your DUIs?
Yes, he was in general population. He was within the confinement of those of similar cases. Again, It don't matter where the facility is and what the level of crime these individuals are. We have to place ourselves at the highest level of security and safety in that facility. So, and that's why it's fenced in the way it is. That's why it's designed the way it is.
Talking about fencing, is the story correct that he was able to get through the fence?
I would not like to provide you that information, but I'll provide you that information when the investigation is complete. The information is shared with GPD would be something that I would not want to take and make it part of our administrative investigation. Again, I would prefer not to share that at this moment.
Mr. Chairman, we may need to have a follow-up to find out if some action is being taken. Is there any truth to the rumor that there was a near escape on Sunday?
Let me,
No, sir. There was a disturbance near our infirmary and the pill line with an inmate that has behavioral health issues, and that was taken under control.
Do I understand that he was out and not supposed to be out from where he was supposed to be? He was in an area where he wasn't supposed to be, is that correct?
Yes, when he was being escorted, he did cause a disturbance. He moved away from the immediate area of the pill line, but the officers gained control of this individual and put him back into custody, into maximum security at that point, because he has behavioral health issues. So.
And how much time was he away from the area that he was supposed to be?
probably like 15, 20 seconds. Other officers were called in to assist because the individual was causing disturbance. So as he was walking away from what people perceived to be an attempted escape, he was caught just about to exit the central control doors, where the officer that was coming in from the opposite side grabbed the individual and brought him in.
So he was near an exit door.
He wasn't near an exit door, Senator. And again, I want to know who classifies this as an escape.
I'm not saying that I'm just asking, was there an incident on Sunday? You're the one that is telling me today that there was a person with a behavioral problem who managed to get away from whoever was escorting him to wherever he was going. And if we can play back the tape. You said he was near the central door.
Central control. That's
Central
correct.
control door as an officer was coming in, and he could have gotten out.
The officer was called as part of the assistance. He did not exit the compound. He did not exit the building.
I understand that he didn't exit the building, but he was near an exit door.
Sir, he was near the exit door to the pill line area, not exit of the building, if that makes any sense. I don't know if Senator, if you can recall where the infirmary is. There's a cage area where the pill line is usually conducted when the inmates and detainees receive medication. Well, there's a door on the other side that leads into attorney-client tables and areas, and that's where he was heading to when the other officer that was called to assist because of the disturbance and trying to secure all the other inmates at the time was coming in to assist and was able to secure him at that area. It's hard to kind of visualize it for you, but
No,
that's...
I got the picture.
Thank you,
And
sir.
on Sunday, were the 9 officers that were on administrative leave already back on duty?
No,
No, sir.
They got back on Monday.
Is it Monday?
today.
Today?
Today, yes, sir.
I thought that this hearing, this oversight hearing, was to get information from you on what procedures you have implemented to assure the community that there were not going to be any more of these escapes. So I was very happy that finally, after an hour, you finally started to list that you're having a clipboard to person check, and there's all kinds of the evening supervisor is now doing something differently. Can you provide us with, or at least explain to us, all the new procedures that you've implemented over the last 17 days to assure the community that someone can't be gone for 3 days before anybody says anything about it? What other, you've listed one to us that you're doing clipboard to person. What other things have you done?
There is the physical head count rather than just counting. We're doing the clipboard to person, and then also the platoon commanders and the acting warden are more engaged in making sure that the individuals that are assigned to the actual population count are doing what they're supposed to.
Anything else?
Not at this time, sir. Until the investigation has been completed and we can actually determine if there's any other areas that need to be beefed up, if you will, as far as security and population control, then that's when we will look at changing some of the other procedures. But for now, we're trying to instill an additional layer of checks and balances with the platoon commanders and also the acting warden.
Has there been a perimeter check to determine whether or not there are areas along the fence where people can get in and out?
Yes, that was initially conducted by the Internal Affairs Unit as soon as the escape had occurred, and then there's also officers assigned to perimeter sweeps and perimeter checks now as well.
Okay, now I've managed to pull another tooth. I mean, I feel like a dentist. Can you just start listing to me all the new things that you're doing? Or do I have to go one by one and pull each tooth one by one? I need to know what other things have you guys implemented? What other new procedures?
Senator,
now there's a perimeter check. There's a
the perimeter check was always engaged. The perimeter check was always engaged. But you're asking, are they? You know, we've beefed up perimeter check. We've tried to beef up the whole checks and balances. Like I said, with the ranking officers versus the line officers that initially do the head counts. We're just trying to beef up those policies right now until such time that the investigation is completed to see where else we need to change any particular policies and procedures, and then we'll do so at that time.
I can feel the chairman getting. I'll allow for other questions to have, but in case I don't come back to ask any more questions, it really would behoove the both of you to ask General Anderson and her staff to assist you. You have 9 officers that you have put on an administrative leave and brought them back. Try to find out what would be the best way to handle this situation with some legal advice. I cannot overemphasize that, and I'm sure that's why the chairman asked the question, and I just want to second his suggestion that somebody talk to whoever's going to represent you at the Civil Service Commission to find out if you guys have undermined your own case by what you've done.
Yes, sir, we will.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Speaker. Senator Morrison?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week, my colleagues and I, we worked very hard to address how we can integrate video surveillance cameras throughout our government, our public parks, our public properties, and of course, we were doing that to see how we can do this through an organizational approach to ensuring that it's really tied into the E911 system. And it's good to hear that. Director, you've been there 6 years, and we just started talking about a surveillance system that you're looking to incorporate into surveilling the perimeters or the compound. To what extent are you going to use this technology? Is it just for the perimeter, or to what extent are we going to use this technology as a tool to assist the officers?
Well, and I thank you for that question. If ever and whenever we get enough funding, after we've accomplished the mandates of this stipulated order of 1991, the cameras should be installed in just about every housing unit, every area of the perimeter, to include facilities such as the galleys, the medical facilities, infirmaries. Just cameras should be mandatory wherever prisoners are going to be exposed to. So it's going to be costly, but it is worth saving people's lives. I think we're probably one of those Department of Corrections that are not as fortunate as we would like to be in compared with stateside prisons. But at one time this facility did have cameras. There's still a few, but they're very old. They're probably pretty much useless. But cameras should be installed in just about every area of the compound or the facility.
To what extent, though, are we looking at this technology? I know that they're going to be installed in every place, but to what extent are we going to use the technology, or let me rephrase that, the type of analytics, or are you going to use them to monitor the officers and their work, or whatever standard operating procedures that they have to conduct throughout the compound? Are they going to monitor the work of the officers or what they should be doing, aside from just monitoring the detainees or the prisoners within the compound? I just want to make sure that if you're going to invest in this tool, that we're really going to maximize the use of that tool and cover to whatever extent we can cover. Because I heard you talk cameras, but I'm concerned that we're just putting them up there to just collect historical data and figure out after the fact when we can use these tools for intervention, prevention measures. So, nothing can beat a warm body around the perimeter, but certainly, that's a challenge to have that 24/7 monitoring the perimeter. But again, I'm just trying to ensure that have you been engaged with the RFP process already, or where are we at, and what stage these video surveillance cameras are at?
We started looking at some options, and again, with the electronic locking, we kind of held back a little. Initially, when this electronic locking came into play, the vendors that came on board, the quotation to include a camera system with that was in there. But because, again, the budgeting that was available, budgeting that was made available, we decided that with the court order, the compliance is that electronic locking must be complied with. There's no language in there with regards to camera. But what we're going to do is we're going to push to try to get cameras on board following the electronic locking system that's being installed. And to answer your question, the cameras are placed there for security reasons. It's not to spy on the officers, but more so a tool for the officers to be able to say, well, someone has breached the security, or someone is back at an area or in an area where they should not be. But not only does it become a tool for the officer, but it becomes a tool for management also in the event that something does happen to the officer, that we could take that data and use it for our investigation. So there's many good uses that technology, if any, that it's an important place that surveillance camera should be placed, would be a prison. Would be a prison, and it's as effective as private citizens are using it out in their community for self-protection. But inside a prison, I would tell you, it should be mandatory that a camera be placed in the facility for the purpose of the protection of the employees and the prisoners that's in there. And so we're going to push it and make it happen one way or another, but a step at a time.
So at least the first phase, what are we looking at with regards to surveillance cameras? I mean, we talked earlier, you talked about the electronic keys, and then you said cameras. Are we talking about the same thing? Because you said camera, surveillance, and electronic keys, because
Yeah, I want to say surveillance camera, and it's not one of those cameras where they could take my picture and put it on Facebook.
Oh.
But it's camera that can assist the officer, ensure that if there's a breach of security or people that are in areas of unauthorized, that they be able to respond. So an example, within the perimeter, a camera would have been very helpful into assisting of an attempted escape, for say. There's also additional stuff that we're looking into. While cameras are probably very handy, we have folks that are interested in helping DOC try to overcome a lot of the problem we're encountering. They're talking about sensors through electric fencing that if a bird lands there or anybody tries to escape, that an alarm goes off and it alerts the officers. So we're looking into it.
I hope, Director.
Inside the facilities, it's important, again, not just those that are escaping, but inside the facility where, the possibility of somebody throwing a tantrum and start, getting in a fight or wrestling with the officer, that somebody from Central Control could say, hey, we have a disturbance over there and the officer's being overcome. And it's an additional tool that could save people's lives, if that makes sense to you.
So we are in the process, though, of integrating cameras at the prison. We are in the process. So we are in the process as a tool to address surveilling the areas that are needed, or surveilling the entire compound.
We're highly considering it.
So
I don't want to say we're in the process, because we have not made any type of contract or gone out with any type of proposal asking for vendors to bid for camera.
Mr. Chair, I'm kind of thrown off a little bit of knowing that we are in this day and age where, I bring it up all the time. I think my colleagues probably get tired of me talking about cameras, surveillance cameras, but obviously I bring it up because they work.
Mm-hmm.
And when we see, and thanks to our private establishments, they are helping our law enforcement out there. Thankfully, they have established surveillance cameras within their perimeters. I'm just wanting to see why is it not a kind of on the list of priorities or things to get done. I know you've been there about 5-6 years, but obviously, we may not never get to the threshold what you feel you should have as officers that are in the compound, and definitely we have to look to this tool that we know works. It's I believe the second best thing to have an eye on the area 24/7, and I'm not sure why it's only being looked into, not something that's already being incorporated into the overall planning of protecting our community.
We want to let us work into budgeting for it, Senator.
Well,
And if you
please
could
put it
help.
on your list,
Sure.
because I'll certainly be the first one to fight for that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Morrison. Vice Speaker Cruz, you have a couple more questions.
And I think we just have to underscore that. In the 5 years that you've been there, have you, in any of your budget requests or submittals, asked for surveillance cameras?
No. No, Senator.
Okay. Also, you talked about training. In the last 2 budgets, how much have you included in your budget for training of your officers to bring them back up to speed?
I can't recall. But I could give that to you probably tomorrow. I can't recall, Senator.
Have you requested any training funds besides what you needed for a new cadre?
Yes, I think we have. And I could, yeah. We brought someone from off island. Again, a lot of this is sharing of costs between the marshals and DOC, but we have brought an individual from off island to allow some of our officers to get some self-defense tactics training.
And I just wanted to get that question in, Mr. Chairman, about, I know. In the last two budgets since the Garrido escape, how much have you included in your budget for restraint equipment?
I think several thousands. We continue to purchase more restraining. Some of them actually did come in a couple months ago. But I think we did include several thousands on there for restraining devices. And we had some that actually came in
Okay,
just a few months ago.
Can you provide the chair with copies of the invoices or the...
Sure.
To show how much we've gotten in so that we don't have another hearing in the future saying that we didn't provide them with enough restraints for ankles and waist and hands that we can't take more severe action, adverse action against them for an escape that resulted in an additional person being raped. I mean, it just...
Will do, Vice Speaker.
All right, so, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, can I just address the training portion of the Senator's question? I've been at the department since February, but I do know in the history when I first came to the department in February, we had about 6 or 7 officers engaging with the Judiciary Guam's Special Enforcement Team training, which was an intensive special teams training conducted by the Judiciary of Guam. We've also been sending our officers to the Guam Community College under the apprenticeship program, which teaches them different types of correctional skills and courses that they're taking. In fact, we had several officers graduate from the Guam Community College just recently. We've also tried to engage in internal training, and at this point is being overseen by the acting warden. And we are looking at different trainings to engage in, which fortunately for us, we have good collaboration with other law enforcement agencies. We've also sent one of our officers to SWAT training with the Guam Police Department. So we're doing our best with the funds that we have to provide and avail our officers with the training to continue to increase their skills in correctional administration at the facility.
In the event that you move forward with the investigation, the internal investigation, and it's determined that more severe adverse action can or should be taken against these 9 individuals or any additional individuals, does the department or do you have any backup plans on what you're going to do if you again have to release those 9 or more if your internal investigation dictates that you should?
Yes, sir. We have currently 27 budgeted vacancies that we're interviewing for right now. And so we're hoping to have the 27 officers complete a new cadre cycle sometime maybe through July.
Yes.
And then have them on board. So we're trying to get that done as...
Are the cadres that short? I thought that the training was a little longer than 6 or 8 weeks.
The correctional cycle has been 6 weeks, sir.
6 weeks?
Yes, sir.
Before you brought those people on, I was wondering whether or not there was any discussion with Adelup about asking the governor to activate the National Guard to assist with guarding the prisoners up there. Has there been any discussion along that line by either one of you with Adelup?
We've had discussions with the front office about different ways to assist our agency when the 9 officers were out Fortunately, though, the investigation allowed for them to return. We've even spoken about bringing back our various task force officers that are assigned to different law enforcement agencies to come back to the facility to work. But with the return of the 9 officers, we are not looking to engage in any of those alternate plans at this time.
As one of the senators mentioned, last week we appropriated about $800,000 for overtime. What is the current overtime situation at DOC? What are your funds like? If we didn't appropriate that $800,000 last week, where would we be? How far behind are you in your overtime?
What would happen, Vice Speaker, is we will be requesting for a $1.2 million to take us to the remainder of fiscal year 2015.
Is that on top of the 800 that we just appropriated?
No,
So you'll need another 400,000.
that's correct.
And when will that be coming to us?
What was your question, Vice Speaker?
When will that request be reaching our desk? I mean, the end of the fiscal year is almost here. We're preparing for the next budget. And so how much are we going to need to finish off this fiscal year? And is there any work that you're doing to amend the initial submission by that department to address what you believe or you've discovered since you've come on as deputy? Any additional needs that you feel can and should be included in the upcoming fiscal year budget?
Yes, sir. We've been working with the Chief Fiscal Officer, BBMR, the front office, as well, with the Attorney General. There are different budgeting issues that we need to revisit to include the additional budget needed for the stipulated order. And so outside of that, those are things that we're trying to work on finalizing numbers for, so we can provide it to BBMR to see what we're going to do to ask for the supplemental funding. But they are aware of the supplemental funding that we'll have to request of the front office and, of course, the legislature based on the stipulated order.
Besides the stipulated order, there are needs as evidenced by this escape. Is there going to be a request to address those needs?
As soon as we've completed the investigation and look at what the different needs are, and if there's additional funding, we have been in communication with the Chief Fiscal Officer and BBMR as to what will be needed, and we will advise the legislature as soon as we're firm on the different items that we need, as well as the finances to back it up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Vice Speaker Cruz. Senator Tonieta?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to follow up on Vice Speaker Cruz's question on the overtime, and I understand that now you'll just be, because we appropriated $800,000 this past week, so we're looking at about additional $400,000. But bringing on that 27 individuals, was that you're still going to need the $400,000 for the overtime?
Possibly not. And we're going to do our best to control the overtime. Even the projected overtime that was provided to the chairman and of course to the committee members is projected, and we're hoping to bring that down. And if anything, maybe not need additional funding for overtime.
So then the 27 individuals that you'll be bringing on board, that's already funded positions?
Those
Budget-
are funded,
budget-
yes,
budgeted
funded
positions.
vacancies, yes, sir.
Okay. Now, the only other question I had was, and I don't know whether your protocol on notifying the public when an escape happens, what is the proper procedure to notify the public on an escape? Especially within the general area, the Manila, Barragata, Chalampago, area.
Yeah, what normally happens is we'll inform our PIO. Our PIO will then inform all the medias and also Adelup of the escape. It's been experienced that WhatsApp has been very, very friendly tools in doing that. But again, our PIO will inform the media of the escape so that it could go out on radio or television, informing all. residents of the escape.
So after you were notified of the escape, how long after that was the media notified or the public notified of the escape? Were they notified immediately?
It's immediately.
Yes, sir. We
Under 30 minutes.
initiated, at the time of the escape, I initiated contact with the Guam Police Department and other law enforcement agencies to get bodies to assist us in the perimeter search of the facility. And then I worked closely with Officer AJ Balahaja, and he helped us to make sure that all the entities, the media, everyone was advised, and then they put it up on social media as well as online. And so all of that information got out while we were also still trying to coordinate the search effort at the facility at the same time.
Oh, okay, I see. But Director and Deputy, and to your staff here, I know sometimes oversights may be intimidating, and I know sometimes the questions are not like what we want to hear. But this committee here is we just want to know what's going on so that we can try and help you to give you the tools that you need, give you the funding that you may need to address those issues. And don't look at it as something that we're trying to badger you or things like that. But I think we're more so just trying to help you so that working with the administration and the oversight, the chairman, especially for appropriations, that we'll be able to address these issues at least one at a time. It may not be all at one time, but so that we can work together and address these issues, and in that way we have a safer community and we have a safer island.
Sure.
But, thank you all of you guys for all that you do to keep our families safe at night, to keeping the public safe. And I just wanted to say that, Mr. Chair, in addition to this oversight, thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Tony Adams. Senator Brian McCready, you have a follow-on question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick follow-up to Vice Speaker's question. When we talk about the monies that may need to be added in the appropriation for the budget that wasn't appropriated last year, you got about 1.2 million in overtime that you're projecting
That's
through
correct.
the end of the fiscal year?
Yes.
And then your RFP for locking mechanisms, what is the set aside for that? What is that going to cost?
No, that's actually separate. That's already has been.
Identified, but I'm just saying,
That's
what's the cost? About another million, 1.2
No,
million?
it was for all 4 units.
Yeah.
It was 1.7. That
1.7.
was came from the
Yeah, the vacancy pool. Absolutely.
300,000 was initially
Yes.
from DOI.
You guys spent 12,000 on the infirmary, the recent renovation?
Give or take anywhere from 10 to 12,000.
10 to 12,000. And then the stipulated agreement to come in compliance for the mental health side of.
We have not come up with the numbers for the mental health or dentistry at this time. That's something we're still working on.
But no projections?
Not as of
But
yet,
it's going to
sir.
be in the millions. The initial investment is going to be
More than
$3-4
more
million
than
dollars.
likely, but I don't have a set
Okay.
number for you, sir.
So my question was, we're looking at maybe $5 or $6 million more than we appropriated last year just on those initial projections of what it's going to cost. So I just wanted to make sure that.
It's probably a close guess. I think the AG will
Yes,
best
but-
respond to
okay.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator McCready. So just a recap with regards to this particular issue, and then we'll invite General Barrett Anderson. Thank you, General, for your patience this evening. A recap, you have your 9 officers who have returned to duty and have been reassigned to separate posts so that, in fact, they can continue to provide services to Department of Corrections. You have ongoing training that you're including and applying to your personnel so that, in fact, they can get upgrade training, which is necessary in lieu of what had transpired. You also have implemented additional checks with the perimeter in regards to assuring the community, to whatever extent you can with the resources you have, that you're carrying out your responsibilities. Also, in conjunction with that, you're looking at, by July, if it's approved by the front office, recruiting an additional 27 recruits to eventually become correctional officers so that, in fact, they can provide direct services and reinforce your manpower that you have presently. You also, there's a couple of requests that the committee has requested, or members of the committee have requested. One is the invoices on the restraining equipment that have been procured in the last year and a half since the last escape. And then the other request by members of the committee is a copy of policy 9419 and any amendments that is presently under discussion in terms of when that policy is going to be updated. Okay, so that's a recap. Unless I miss anything, I want to thank you for providing an update with regards to the ongoing activities. I believe that as this is going to be continued on Friday, because obviously the hard questions are going to be asked, the even tougher questions are going to be asked when the Chair of Appropriation, you appear, the Department of Corrections personnel appear before the Chair of Appropriations, and training. Right now, there's zero budgeted for your training, and in this particular case, that's going to be a big consideration and part of the discussion, so just FYI. And then obviously ensuring that your men and your women, the corrections officers, have the tools and the equipment necessary to carry out their jobs as effectively as possible. And then obviously we have the stipulated order, which we'll be discussing very shortly. So those are questions that will be discussed with the Finance Committee. So I refrain from going into the budgetary component only because the Chair of Appropriations is here, and we'll be discussing that particular issue on Friday. So that's a recap of what the department has undergone and implemented since the last escape, the most recent escape on the 19th of May. I just want to close with this. First and foremost, thank you very much for providing your direct responses to the committee and really to the people of Guam as it applies to assuring the community that you're doing everything you possibly can to ensure that the inmates as well as the detainees are confined within the premises of the Department of Corrections. Secondly, I believe the emphasis on the training, I think that's a good start, but it's a start that should have been implemented many, and I'm going to say it one more time, many months ago, because it should be a continuous requirement in terms of making sure that your men and women are properly trained so that they can be able to react as quickly as possible to ensure the safety of our community. Another thing is the responses, the press releases, the press conferences that you held to ensure that our media partners are able to share with the community your ongoing activities. I really appreciated that, your communication with the chair and the dissemination of information with regards to this particular incident. I appreciate your responsiveness, Mr. Director and Madam Deputy, and I certainly hope that whatever your requirements are going to be going into the next FY, that can be shared with members of this legislative body so that we can give you the appropriate budget that would give you the reinforcement or provide the people of Guam that reinforcement that whatever you're doing there, training, manpower strength, leadership, that you're doing what is necessary to ensure that there is no additional escape in the future. So I really appreciate your responses today. I would like to invite General Barrett Anderson, please, Madam General, if you can join us. Oh, by all means. Madam General, I know that your presentation would be all-inclusive, so the discussion here is the Department of Corrections Settlement Agreement, the Health Working Group, ongoing activities, and an update. You did provide the committee with an update about a month and a half ago, so this is a follow-on, and then also the Facilities Working Group, the electronic locking system. So, Mr. Director, unless you're going to yield to General Barrett Anderson, you can open the floor on these particular items.
Thank you so much, Mr. Director. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. We were here about a month and a half ago, and we continue to make incredible progress. The working group is continued to be headed by myself and the Lieutenant Governor. And the working group has split into, as I informed you before, two components. The health component and the physical plant component for the 4 units, more lovingly referred to as the locking system group. And I have Deputy Attorney General Fred Nisha here to give you some information on the locking system. We continue to make our monthly reports to the court. We have met every deadline to date. I say that with a smile on my face because the more difficult deadlines are looming before us. And that involves the medical health and mental health, behavioral health component. And that's far more difficult. I'm going to have Deputy Attorney General Fred Nishihira talk first on the facilities component and where we're at with that on the locking system, if you don't mind. Okay.
Thank you, Madam General.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with regard to the locking system, as you know, we issued a RFP just over 45 days ago. The RFPs are due this coming Friday. A total of 4 vendors, potential vendors, have picked up, and of course we don't know how many would submit. With that said, there are 4 different posts that will get electronic locking systems. To answer your question, Senator Morrison, a video system, closed circuit TV system, recording system is on the RFP, but it's an option. So in other words, if DOC can find the funds, or if it's within the budget, certainly that can be an option checked off. And the reason we did that was because we wanted to first comply with the court order, which only required a locking system. But if we can afford it, even if it means, and we've had this discussion coming to the legislature for supplemental, then that would occur at that particular time. So with that being said, all things are in place. Lieutenant Anton Oguin has been working closely with GSA to make sure that our I's are dotted, T's are crossed, to make sure we receive it properly. It would then be evaluated, and based on the evaluation, we'll begin the negotiation process. That's the first part on the locking system. I'm sorry, did you want me to do the clinic side too, or?
Can you just provide an estimated cost at this point in time?
Right now, what we've done is we've set it at $2 million. So as part of the RFP, we said we have $2 million. And so the basic concept of it was to say, we have $2 million, here's the court order, get us a locking mechanism, give us the proposal you have, and give us the option to include a closed circuit. So,
September 30th.
Correct. So, and we've been pretty adamant about that date. The number one question I can say from vendors is, can you extend that September 30th date? And we've always said no.
Okay.
With that being said, I'll move on to the second part, because in the working group for facilities, we also have, as Senator McCready has said, renovated and completed the renovations. It used to be called infirmary. We've changed it now to clinic. So that's been done for separate purpose that General Anderson will talk about. But yes, it was done, completed. We've met all the deadlines with regard to the court order.
Good. Thank you very much. Madam General?
Any questions on the facilities before I get into the
On the
medical health and
infirmary,
behavioral
I guess
health?
really more or less a statement on the infirmary, the construction of the infirmary. I understand that there's been very good coordination amongst intergovernmental agencies, and I don't want to dismiss the support and the assistance that was received by,
All the agencies.
I know DPW was...
DPW, the crew up there at DPW under Dominic Munoz unit, General Services Agency, to get all the supplies and materials. And the University of Guam, Uncle Bob and Sonny Perez. The University of Guam actually came to our rescue for the expertise in construction, and they've been guiding us, guiding even the Attorney General's office. We know the legal aspect. We certainly don't know the construction aspect. So with the assistance of the University of Guam construction experts, we're moving right along. And also I have to recognize the crew from internal, the Department of Corrections, who were there late at night, even during the storm, I believe, fixing the clinic so that it meets the standard for the May 18th deadline. And we met that deadline, and that's what Senator McCready got a tour of today. I haven't even seen it. I need to get up there. So we met those deadlines. The last one was the May 18th deadline. So we're there. Before I get into, again, medical and behavioral health, is there any other questions about the locking system? We have a price of $2 million with the option of some video cameras, and
Thank you. I just wanted to
we
ensure
held them
that
to that
General
gun.
Anderson, I just wanted to ensure that you also are able to recognize publicly the other intergovernmental support that was provided to DOC. So I appreciate that.
The
You can go ahead.
support is phenomenal. I would be remiss if I also didn't mention the Guam Fire Department, the Superior Court of Guam, because we need to know where are we going to put these inmates and detainees once we start on the units. So the Department of Corrections needs to be able to shift bodies when the construction begins. So with regard to intergovernmental cooperation, in my 34 years, and I keep saying this, this has been a remarkable and a wonderful example of the talent within our government agencies, that they come before you every day, but you don't see all these people. And when you appropriate the funds and the money for these governmental agencies to do their work, they're the ones on our team right now, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You may proceed with that.
Okay, with regard to the medical health and the behavioral health also referred to as mental health, those two components. Early on, we knew that the medical health component of the order was going to be the most difficult. Some of you asked some questions. Well, how much is that going to cost next year? What is the medical health cost per inmate? We have some workings of an idea, but I don't want you to rely on those figures. But if you want me to tell you,
And in recognition that they're preliminary numbers.
preliminary, probably 5,000 an inmate, 5,000 a body. California's 13,000. But it would not be unreasonable to suspect that the cost for medical and mental health for an inmate or detainee at the Department of Corrections will be anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 a year. Okay, and we're still working to give the legislature a better figure, as well as the governor. The hardest date coming up is June 16th. Because this is getting into the nitty-gritty of medical health. Let me give you an idea of those requirements. Emergency services, continuity of care, suicide prevention, intoxication and withdrawal policies, emergency psychotropic medication, chronic care, that's a big one. Chronic care being diabetes, heart disease, other types of chronic illnesses that our people of our island suffer, and they walk into our prisons with those chronic issues. The mental health screening and evaluation of all the inmates. And I think that those are the June 16th deadline. We have 14 days to accomplish all of this. We knew a couple of months ago when we were down here, and even just before that, this has been the problem for 20 years, and we never solved it. Well, how do you solve this kind of an issue with a facility and a department that is not set up? It is not built to be a hospital. It just isn't. And I think we had suffered over 20 years not knowing what that answer was. We were fortunate with the money, senators, again, I keep thanking you for the giving my agency the carryover money from 2014 to be able to search for some experts. And I thank most of you who were there. Senator Morrison, you weren't there at the meeting with our expert, Dr. Johnny Wu from the University of Connecticut. We searched for some expert out there to give us some guidance here. We found this person at the University of Connecticut, and we did a long-distance phone call, not knowing what we would do or what he would say, and my goodness, I think we hit jackpot. Because it became crystal clear, you can't put upon a correctional facility their responsibility of building a medical health or mental health component. And the University of Connecticut School of Medicine, they have a hospital there, and Connecticut through their hospital runs, was it seven prison systems in 7 counties, 17,000 inmates and detainees, and the medical health and mental health is run by the hospital at the University of Connecticut. Now, what a brilliant idea. Leave it to the experts. With that type of model, which has been growing throughout the nation, the model was first, I'd say, invented in Texas and has now been adopted in Georgia, in Connecticut, in New Jersey, and certainly still in Texas, where you team up with a hospital or you team up with a university. And that university component is where you get the training of medical health professionals and mental health professionals to want to go into correctional work. Because I'll tell you, if you ask me to apply to work at DOC right now, I'd probably say no, thank you. But if you build within the career component at universities, this concept of nurses wanting to work in corrections, doctors wanting to work in corrections, medical technicians, mental health professionals wanting to go into prison medicine and prison behavioral health, it's a whole new field out there today. But the most important part of the component of this concept of hospitals or university hospitals and correctional institutions is that they run the clinics. And with that, the Lieutenant Governor approached Guam Memorial Hospital. The former CEO there had actually worked in New Jersey's prison system as they were connected to the University of New Jersey. And I didn't realize that. And so the question was posed, and I know you've been reading all the newspapers and the articles on this one, would the Guam Memorial Hospital, would the Board of Directors of Guam Memorial Hospital agree to take on this tremendous challenge? And I have to tell you, the doctors and the nurses there and the technicians, pharmacists, were very interested, very, very interested in this. Of course, they wanted to know how much it was going to cost them. So at the meeting that we had with the Lieutenant Governor, you saw that this is the way it's going to go. The Guam Memorial Hospital will, and in a memorandum of understanding that we signed, was that just last month, Mr. Director? The MOU with, so the memorandum of understanding with the Guam Memorial Hospital was just signed a couple of weeks ago. With the approval of the board of the Guam Memorial Hospital. They were concerned about accreditation, but I think those concerns were allayed with the board. And now it's just putting that memorandum of understanding whereby the infirmary is no longer called an infirmary. It is a clinic, and it'll be run under the auspices of the Guam Memorial Hospital, and all the policies and procedures that we have between now and September 30th will fall in line with the guidance of the Guam Memorial Hospital, their nurses, their technicians there, their pharmacy. I want to mention one of the major things that we accomplished was to reduce the cost of medicine at the Department of Correction. From over $1 million, it has come down drastically. And that is through the services of the pharmacy at Guam Memorial Hospital. So we know we still have the contract, but we don't have to buy particular medicines from our private contractor. The contract is still there. In the event the Guam Memorial Hospital cannot get medication because of, what is the word, Fred? GMH? Credit hold. We were warned that one day they'll be fine and the next day they could be on credit hold. So the director still has the contract with the private vendor, but the first approach will be to go to Guam Memorial Hospital for medicine, and if by chance credit hold creates a problem, we still have the other vendor. So I think there's a bright future between Guam Memorial Hospital and DOC. One of the things I wanted to mention to all of you was if you take that $4,000 to $5,000 per inmate, say there's 280 or 300 inmates, you multiply that. You have to multiply it by the detainee population as well. But that appropriation shouldn't go directly to DOC. It should go to the government agencies who provide medical health as well as dentistry through the Department of Public Health and Social Services. That's where we're hoping to get the dentist to come into this lovely clinic you saw. Guam Memorial Hospital for their services, for their nurses and other staff. Guam Behavioral for whatever assistance Guam Behavioral needs to give DOC in the behavioral health. So that money, it needs to go to the direct service providers so that they can build that for Guam Department of Corrections. We've never done this before, but I think that's the whole point. Think out of the box. We've never done it before. We couldn't do it in 20 years. I think this is the answer. I still think, Senator McCready, there still is a problem with the facility. And I know you've been a champion of where do we go in the next couple of years with the facility. Locking systems and cameras is just Band-Aids. And so there still is that component. But with this concept that has spread across the nation in several states of linking your medical facilities in your jurisdiction to the correctional facilities, it just makes absolute sense. And one thing I want to mention about our expert, he indicates that the university hospitals are government. It's government to government. The university hospitals not trying to make money, not like it is in California. Those are private receivers that are running the prison systems in California. The prison health systems in California. They're out to make a profit. And so that's taxpayers' money going to those private entities. But when you have this government-to-government concept, it's just so brilliant. So in that respect, I think you can be assured that the taxpayers' money is being properly spent, and it's not going into a receiver's pocket in any way. So still a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. We're not out of the woods by a long shot. But the working group every day, every week, continues to work with the director's staff and all of the government agencies from the Guam Fire Department, General Services Agency, DPW. Carla, tell me if I'm missing someone. My staff, I want to thank Deputy Attorney General Fred Nishihira. He's constantly on this. He's our procurement guy. He's our contract guy. And Assistant Attorney General Kat Focus, who's always focused on this matter. And certainly, Senators, you have been so cooperative as well. When you gave this group that initial Bill 1-33, it allowed us to move as fast as we could. And so what you wanted to accomplish, and Senator Cruz, I was there in the Committee of the Whole and listening to your support and your comments to a lot of the questions from your colleagues. I do very, very much appreciate that. And the money is being well spent, and it will continue to be spent in this focus. I'll be more than glad to answer any of your specific questions on this.
Madam General Barrett Anderson, I believe you answered most of the questions, and you provided an excellent update in terms of what the costs are, the cost of the interlocking system, the potential of adding the cameras to that particular project, and then also the medical and the health with a price tag that could escalate as high as $4 to $5 million. And certainly the chairman of appropriation is here, and he was also privy to participating in that meeting with Dr. Wu. And I agree with you, the concerted effort on the part of your office, Department of Corrections, and all the other government agencies that have been cooperating and working closely in this particular project has been incredible. And we commend you for your leadership, the Lieutenant Governor, for stepping forward and also assisting in this process, and most especially all of our men and women in government who's actually providing direct support, because it's been a wonderful experience to see from an angle, knowing that the funding mechanism was provided by the legislature, but seeing a lot of these things take place. So I commend you, and I thank you for your team's effort, the Lieutenant Governor's participation, and then also DOC. So with that, we're going to close and conclude our hearing this evening. Thank you very much, and Mr. Director and Madam Deputy and Madam General, thank you again. Have a good evening.